Let me share my screen for my 5 minutes. And those who know me, so who don't, my name is Sebastian. I'm CTO of International Data Spaces Association, and I love to talk about data spaces. So having 5 minutes for data spaces is really tough for me. But today I would like to briefly introduce to you what IDSA has been doing for the recent years and what our plans are in the Eclipse community here, and why it is so super important to push a little bit the open source community to really deliver and bring up industrial grade software for data spaces. That is well connected to the standardization activities like Javier presented before, and I can only second what you just said about the standardization activities. So starting with IDSA. International Data Spaces Association. We are an association, a member-driven association with right now a little bit more than 160 members. We are on stage since roughly 8 years. And well, our mission is pretty easy in the end. We want to build data spaces, meaning that we want to share and exchange data while maintaining control over the data that we want to use and share. So may it be me as a data owner, and I know from a legal perspective, there is no ownership on data, but you know what I'm talking about when it's my data as an organization or as an individual. So if we talk about a data holder or data subject, he or she wants to stay in control about the data that is provided. So it leaves my data center maybe. So I want to stay in control, who can assess, who can use my data. And I also want to have a certain degree of control on the data consumer side. So the one who consumes my data and wants to make use out of it, I want to have a little bit of a stake, some rights, some rules on top of that. And well, it doesn't really make sense only to share data between the two participants. So we have this cloud data-driven ecosystem in the middle where we can mix and match all the data and can really generate value out of data. But I still want to have some kind of control about this data. And well, this mission is pretty easy. If you want to build it, well, it's getting complex and the devil is in the detail. As said, we are doing this for roughly 8 years right now, and we are not creating open source code. We are not creating code at all. So we are the ones with the documents, with the specifications. So we have our reference architecture model, and describing the idea of a data space, what is a data space, how it can be built from a more technical perspective, and also the IDSA rulebook from a more governance perspective. So what is a structure, what is the function requirements of a data space, and what is a governance model? As well, I want to stay in control of the data, then I need something like a tool that does exactly that for me. And we name this a data connector or a participant agent. We don't write the code, but we want to have the code developed by our members, by non-members. We want to have industrial grade software. So what we do at the moment is we monitor a little bit in our data connector report, the kind of software that is evolving. And of course, we have a lot of fancy and cool use cases in our data space radar. But why I'm talking here about open source software, what is really needed? And Javier mentioned that briefly because it's in our charter. This is something that comes from our IDSA rulebook, this idea. So a data space is not a thing in itself. Well, it's a club, a community of participants that want to collaborate, to co-work with each other, that want to exchange data, and they form a data space under a certain governance, under a certain set of rules and policies that they want to adhere to. And this is somehow controlled, managed by a data space authority, as an organization, as just a contract between the participants, whatever. So this is a structure, but in the end, you need software to implement that. You need something like your participant registry. Somehow you need to track your members, maybe a central database where you put all the things inside, having a completely decentralized system, just providing some claims, providing some verification that you really stick to the rules. Mentioned before, you need something like your participant agent, your software, your tool that interacts with the data space for you as an organization. And of course, you need something like identity and claim management. So the whole system with the trust services and the trust anchors below. This is what we need in the end as enterprise-grade software, as industrial usable software. This is what we want to see in the Eclipse Data Space Working Group to grow in the end, to provide as open source, because this can really support the industry in growing and building data spaces on the open source end, of course, but we are completely aware that there will be also some closed source software maybe in the end, because people want to sell software maybe. So for IDSA, both is a good opportunity, but we see there is a strong need to grow this open source community, to collaborate and to come together to build a common software foundation. And well, the question here is, what can we as IDSA contribute? So on the one hand side, a little bit of experience in the data space business, but we've been working on the data space protocol in the recent years. And I'm happy to say that with release 2024-1, we have the real stable version of the data space protocol in our hands. So I know you will say, well, Sebastian, we need to talk about this one and that one, but hey, it's pretty good from my perspective what we have here with the data space protocol. And this is what we're lifting into the data space working group here in Eclipse as a specification, so as a document, as a specification document. And inside the working group, so we associated the data space protocol as a project. We just associated the TCK, the Technology Compatibility Kit project for the data space protocol. And we have the first implementation associated, or one of the implementation, which is the Eclipse data space components. Those folks are implementing the data space protocol. And as Javier mentioned, not a single stack, but at the moment, this stack. And so folks, the race is on to also implement that one, if you would like to. But that's not the only thing. So we have the data space protocol as a specification. The TCK now has to follow and implement all the rules and tests to check the compliance to the document. We need one or multiple compliant implementations, but that's not all what we need. So you see here a picture of the data space protocol that is focusing on how to create data catalogs and publish data catalogs, how to negotiate the contracts, and then how to manage the data transfer in the end. And the actual data transfer is done in data planes. So, and we need those data planes projects. And this is something that is at least on my to-do list and in the scope for 2024 to really bring those data space protocol related projects to speed with a specification, the TCK and the compatible implementation. But also we need to get those data plane projects started. That is on my to-do list for 2024 as well, to have really reusable data planes as well here. So that was my 5 minutes.